we are going to learn about industrialization in the United States today, specifically deindustrialization in the United States. If you have selected this lab to do, you know that it's a 5-point lab, and 5-point labs are expected to take significantly longer than 1-point assignments. And so keep that in mind. If this is the first of these that you've done, in order to submit this assignment, you need to make a copy of this document for yourself. And then at the end, when you're all done, when you have typed all your answers on the document itself in the appropriate places, then submit on Canvas by providing us the link to the document. As soon as we get that, we'll be able to see it and can grade it. Okay, another thing that we need to keep in mind here is that this assignment requires you to log into your ArcGIS account through the high school. Some of you may have clicked the button before that says log in with Google. That will not work for this assignment. You must use your WHS username and password. Your username is your school username, and then at the end of it, add _ WHSGEO, and then your password is whatever password you created when you first logged in. If you don't remember your password, hit the Forgot Password button. It will walk you through how to reset it. If you have any difficulties, send me, Mr. Klein, an email, and my email is at the bottom of this document. So just some things to keep in mind as you're working through this. Another thing that you need to know is it's only going to take me about 15 minutes to go through this, but it will take you quite a bit longer. That's why this is a 5-point assignment, because the steps getting through the assignment are more complicated and more precise in order to do it correctly. And then there is a written reflection at the end that should take you a while to complete. You should be required to spend quite a bit of time on that. That's why we're giving you more points for this. So let's go ahead and get started. You can go ahead and read the overview, the introduction. This is about manufacturing. We hear on the news a lot about how Chinese manufacturing plants are taking U.S. jobs, and that is true. That is a trend that has gone on for quite a while. On the flip side of it, in the United States, this process of manufacturing plants closing is called deindustrialization. So we're going to learn about what that looks like on the map of the United States using some fairly complex data sets in ArcGIS Online. So when you get down here to the instructions, it's going to tell you what to do. One more time, you need to open up ArcGIS Online and log into your Windsor High School account. So I already have this set up on my account. So I'm going to go ahead and move that. Give me a couple keystrokes here. I'm going to go ahead and move the map that I created onto here. The way you would do it is you would log into your account and click Map, which will be up at the top, and that'll give you a blank map. You'll notice that mine's not blank. There's already a layer on there. That's because the process that we're going to go through today uses this analysis button. So when you log in, if you don't see this analysis button, that means you didn't log in using your Windsor High School account. You'll need to log out and go back out and figure out that part. But you will not see this hotspot manufacturing layer. The layer takes several minutes to produce, so rather than sit here in the video and watch it happen, I've already made it, and I'm going to show you how to make it, but then we're going to jump ahead, just like one of those cooking shows where they tell you how to make something, and then they've already made it, and they pull it out of the oven complete. That's what we're doing with this hotspot layer here. So you're going to open a new blank map. You're going to add a layer that illustrates U.S. manufacturing. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to add layer from the web, and we're going to copy this URL into the box. So I'm going to go ahead and make a copy with Control-C of this URL because I'm going to need that. I'm going to go into my map. I'm going to say Add, and I'm going to choose Add Layer from Web right there. When I click on that, it gives me a URL box, and that's where I'm going to paste that into. Add layer should see something like this. So it says Chapter 7. No secret here, this layer is used. It's borrowed from another assignment that I came across in a textbook that I was using. And so we're going to use the same data set. We're just going to do it a little differently than the person who wrote the textbook did it. But basically, this describes what the layer is all about. It shows U.S. manufacturing employment data. In other words, things like how many people in each county in the United States are employed in manufacturing, and during two time periods, the year 2000 and the year 2015. So we can see change in manufacturing data in the United States at the county level over the course of 15 years. So we can ask questions like, what's happened to manufacturing jobs in the United States, both in total and in specific parts of the United States? That's what this layer gives us. We're also going to add another layer, which is also on the internet, and also we've got our URL right here. So I'm going to copy that, go back to my map, repeat the process from before, add layer from web, paste the new URL in there, and I'm going to get something like this. It doesn't look very helpful right now because it's just a map of the United States. And if you click on one here, let me do this. Let me do that over. If I turn off the manufacturing layer and I click on the good old state of Wyoming, we can get some data here. This is not very helpful for us. It's okay to have this, but we're not going to use all this data today. Instead, we just want an outline of the United States. And so what I want to do is make this outline transparent. Keep the state lines, but nothing else, and leave leave the inside of the states blank. And so if I turn our manufacturing layer back on, I can't really see any data. But if I go here and I change style, and I say, all right, we're still going to show location, but instead, we're going to change the drawing options. The symbols are going to change. The fill, we're going to choose this little thing here, which is no color. And to make the outline stand out, we're going to use red. And you can just pick like red right here if you want. And then let's make the line a little thicker, so it just kind of pops a little more. And then scroll down and hit OK. By the way, if your text box is sitting down here below the level of your tray, all you need to do is hit Control and minus, and it will zoom out a little so that you can see the OK button. It's a common thing that happens on Chromebooks. Okay, so there we go. Now we have data that looks like this. Now, you'll notice that your layer is going to look a little different than mine. That's because I've already made this layer once. So I'm going to go in and reset the style back to the way it should look for you guys. We're going to change this to percent manufacturing in the year 2000. And it's going to make its best guess of what we want. And you can see the legend here, the very dark stuff, is up to 0.248. That means 24.8% of the people living in these very dark areas work in a manufacturing plant. If you think about this, this is a count of every person in those places. So young and old and everything in between. And so if you pull out the people that are under the age of 18 that wouldn't probably be working in a manufacturing plant, and the people that over the age of 65 probably wouldn't be working in a manufacturing plant, what's left, 24% really gets a lot bigger. So you're looking at places where maybe 50% of all the adult workers right through here and in some of these places, they work in a factory. Compare that to what you know about Windsor. A very low percentage of people in Windsor work in factories. And so you can see in our part of the country, there's not very much manufacturing by comparison to some of these really dark areas. By the way, those instructions, what I just flew through to get you to here, those all take you through right here to step 5. We have now completed step 5 in here. And so your map should look something like this, just like mine. And you can spend a little time looking around. If you want to zoom in on Weld County, where we live, click on it if you're curious. There's a bunch of data here that we can see. And the number that we used to display this map was this percent manufacturing in the year 2000. You can see in Weld County, 14% of people work in manufacturing. And for Colorado, that's kind of on the high side. Most places in Colorado, let me zoom out, struggling with this a little bit. Most places in Colorado do not have that high of a manufacturing percentage. Most of these counties are very, very low, with the exception, of course, of Morgan County right here and Larimer County over here. If you think about that, in Weld County, who are the people working in manufacturing plants? In Windsor, there are some manufacturing plants like, of course, Vesta and OI and some of those small manufacturers out on the east side of town. But Weld County is made up of a lot of different areas, and Windsor is not a very big part of it. Most of these manufacturing jobs are going to be in some type of food processing industry. So think like JBS Manufacturing in Greeley, which is the largest pork producing company in the world. It's a Brazilian company, and there's a lot of facilities in Weld County for JBS and others like it. Same thing with Morgan County, a lot of meat processing plants out there. Whereas Larimer County, there's going to be some of that as well, but Larimer County is also going to have some high-tech manufacturing. Same thing with Boulder County down here that we don't see in Weld County. So you can look around, pick some different places around the country and look at the numbers and see what you find. But now we are in the instructions, we are right here where we've examined the map. What we really want to do though is we want to get a more clear picture, because yes, there's heavy manufacturing through here and through other parts, but what we want to do is use a geographic statistical tool called hotspot analysis. And hotspot analysis gives us a much more specific picture of how likely it is to run into somebody who works in manufacturing. And so we click on our analysis button up here, and we go down to Analyze Patterns, and we choose Find Hotspots. If you want to read about what a hotspot analysis is, there's a real brief example of it here. And as I say in the instructions, this is the way you should look at it. If you start driving from one part of the country to the other, and you're driving through one of the areas with a very high hotspot, that means that the likelihood of you encountering that characteristic is very high. So keep that image in mind of driving across the country. You're going to go ahead and click Find Hotspots, and you're going to modify it. The instructions tell you exactly what to do, but basically we're going to choose our manufacturing census data. We're going to choose our percentage of people in manufacturing in the year 2000. We're not going to divide anything. We're not going to normalize it, as it's called, so leave that as none. You can leave your result layer name and where you put it. It's fine. One thing that you really must do is uncheck this box right here where it says Use Current Map Extent. If you're zoomed in like here and you leave this box checked, it's only going to run the analysis for this part of the map, what you can see in the window. So you want to uncheck that, and then you go ahead and hit Run Analysis. Now, as I've said, I've already done this. This will take a few minutes to run, and when you're done, you'll get something called Hotspots Analysis, and it'll be sitting up on the top instead of down here at the bottom. I've moved mine, obviously. So I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to compare hotspots to what we see here. Now, the general overview of the continental United States is there's some really dark areas. But statistically, some of this is a little deceiving because dark blue can mean a lot of things. It can mean a range from maybe 20% all the way up to 25% of people. Plus, on top of that, it doesn't really show you the relationship between the other places. If you're in a county that also has a lot of manufacturing, that shows a really high prevalence of manufacturing in the year 2000. And so we want to generate a hotspot. And so pay attention to the difference between this map, which is just a general display, and the statistical hotspot map. And you'll see the change here in just a moment as it draws it. You can see there's a huge difference. These places in the middle part of the United States that were actually considered to have a lot of manufacturing, they're actually cold spots in this analysis. So if you got in a car over here in Salt Lake City and you started driving, you drove over here to Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, you would be driving through a cold spot. Yes, there's manufacturing, but the likelihood of you actually consistently running into a lot of people that work in manufacturing is fairly low. Versus if you start over here, I guess that's in western Minnesota, one of those towns out there on the plains, and like say Duluth, and you got in a car and you started driving, you drove all the way to Philadelphia down here in Pennsylvania, your likelihood of encountering consistently a lot of people along the way working in manufacturing is way higher. This is a hot spot, this red area is. So when you go back to your instructions, here's what we want to say. Describe where the manufacturing is most important. The red places are the places where manufacturing is most important to the livelihood of everybody in the United States. because you might have counties scattered through here where there's manufacturing that's important, but the entire state of Colorado doesn't really rely on manufacturing that much. But come over here to these states like Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Tennessee, Kentucky. These are places where manufacturing is super important to everybody because all that is so closely related. And that's really what the hotspot analysis allows us to see. So go ahead and answer that question. Then we're going to take a broader view and we're going to say, okay, how many fewer people work in manufacturing in the year 2015 versus the year 2000? Because we know from the news that, American jobs are going overseas, manufacturing jobs. Well, let's figure that out. Let's turn off our hotspot layer. Let's go to the table of manufacturing census. And let's open it up and make it a little bigger here. All of these columns have some characteristic. Now, don't worry about any of these. You can see total population here. Number of men in manufacturing, women in manufacturing. These are all raw total numbers. This one here, this shows the total number of people in the year 2000 that worked in manufacturing. And if you've done some of the other labs that have been posted for ArcGIS, you know that if you click on that, you're going to get a statistical option. So you can click statistics and it'll tell you, okay, in 2000, there were 18,284,614 people in the United States, in all the counties in the United States, who worked in manufacturing jobs. So we can take that number and copy it and go down to the instructions and say, okay, in 2000, there were that many people. Then go over to the total manufacturing. It's kind of hidden, but you can see total manufacturing 2015, do the same thing and put it in here. Then answer the question, how many fewer workers were there by 2015? So what's the difference between these two numbers? That's really what we want to know. Are we really losing jobs, and is it significant? And it'll be a large number, but if you take that large number and divide it by this number, you're going to find the actual percentage loss of jobs over those 15 years, which is a good indicator. Okay, so now you've identified the decline in manufacturing jobs. You've seen the patterns of manufacturing in 2000. Let's go ahead and look at where the decline has happened. So we know a certain number of people have left manufacturing jobs. Those jobs are gone now. But really, where did it happen? Because that's the important thing. Where are we losing manufacturing jobs? And on the flip side, are there places where we're gaining manufacturing jobs? So this set of instructions in 14 walks you through how to do that. And so you can refer to this box to know how to set it. But basically, I'm going to do it for you here. I'm going to close my table. I'm going to turn off, for now, my state's generalized layer, and I'm going to change the style of this one. And instead of looking at the percentage of people in 2000 that worked in manufacturing, instead, I want to know the difference between the two. And that's this value here, difference percentage change. It basically says what's the difference between the 2000 numbers and the 2015 numbers. And a positive number means that that's how many jobs were lost, what percentage of jobs were lost. And a negative number actually means that there's more jobs. I don't like this style box. It's not very helpful because we want to show both losses and gains. And right now it's only showing positive numbers, which are losses. So we're going to go into the options section. We're going to click on it. And instead of choosing high to low, you can leave this one alone. But instead of choosing high to low, we're going to choose above and below. And it's going to give us a default color pattern. Again, I don't like this color pattern, so let's change it. This is America. Let's choose red, white, and blue. Let's go here and choose this one, which is the red, white, and blue color pattern. And then we need to change our values. If we go back to our instructions and look at the map, we want the top value to basically remain the same. We want the middle value to be 0, and we want the bottom one to be negative 0.05. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. But let's change it. We'll leave that one as it is. That's fine. The bottom one, let's change it first. Instead of making it 0, let's click on it. And let's say negative 0.05. Hit enter. That drops that down to there. And the middle one, let's click on it. And let's just change that to 0. The reason why I want to use 0 for that is I want the white, the middle, to represent no change on our map. So that means that anything that's blue means that manufacturing jobs have been lost. Anything that's red means manufacturing jobs have been gained. The darker the blue, the more losses. The darker the red, the more gains. And we go ahead and click done. And there we go. So we can compare this to the previous map. Okay, here are the parts of the country, the dark red ones, where manufacturing is most important in 2000 to people's daily lives. These are the places where so many people work in manufacturing. We consider them a hotspot. Well, if we turn that layer off, we can say, all right, what parts of the country did also people lose a lot of jobs? And yes, in general, it's in those red areas, but I want you to be more specific. What parts of the red areas, which means manufacturing was very important in 2000, did you also see large losses as well? And you can also note that there's gains in manufacturing throughout this part of the country, a little bit down here in the south, and scattered parts of the US. And yes, if we zoom in, Weld County right here, we did, oops, right clicked. You can see, oh, that's Carbon County. Sorry, I'm a little out of whack. There's Weld County. We actually did in Weld County lose jobs. We are blue, and so we have less. We lost 10% of our manufacturing jobs. So we are one of the blue counties, and then you can see Alaska and Hawaii are a little out there. Anyway, that takes us to right here. Click done and OK, and it shows what the change was. You're going to answer some questions here, a couple of them. The big part of this assignment, the part that takes the most work, is right here. Well-constructed paragraph, topic sentence, some body sentences based on your thesis, and some evidence. And the evidence needs to just come from the map that you just created. So take your time on this. This should take you a while, and it should take you more than one draft. If you put your first draft in, probably not going to do very well on it. So make sure you take your time. This will probably take you close to an hour to get to here, and then you should spend a little more time, maybe another hour on the paragraph to do a really good job on it. As you see at the bottom, here's my email. If you have any technical questions, you can send me an email. Otherwise, submit the assignment on Canvas when you're all done. All right, have fun. See you guys later.